Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we find ourselves in medieval Italy, where a very powerful family contends for the dominion of a vast region, seeking to assert its influence over the noble class and sway the clergy's allegiance and governance. Now, as a local lord, you must be constantly navigating treacherous waters, choosing your allies wisely, and shifting allegiances when opportune exists. Dominance is for 2 to 4 players, takes 20 to 30 minutes to play, is for ages 12 and up, and published by Geek. Now it's being crowdfunded right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. Now there are some different thematic sets available for dominance in this campaign. One of them is the medieval Italy, which you can see some of the components here. Now for this video, I'm going to be focusing on the Inca Empire set, and there's also some other further upcoming ones as well. This is a crowdfunding preview, so all the art and components you see here are not final. These are prototypes. To see all the most up-to-date art and components, check the link in the description of this video. Now here I have dominance set up for a 4-player game. Now, a few things to mention about setup here. First of all, the setup changes depending on whether you're playing with 2 or 3 or 4 players. Also, the setup is somewhat randomized, and you can kind of create any type of pattern you want. Here's a 4-player game with all the tiles being used, and I set it up in this sort of way, but it could be done anyway. You could put one here, or you could make one long line of these, or you can make a big single group of these, or you could do something in between, kind of like this, where it's kind of elongated, but then there's a big stack like this. So each game can be different with that. Now, once you have it set up here, you're going to randomly take from this bag the coins. Now there are 3 types of coins, and each of them represent one of the 3 different factions. Now in this case, I actually have 3 of each of the different factions here, but this is randomized, so each game, even the setup is going to be different depending on, one faction might have a little bit more on there, which might change your early strategies in the game. Now each player has a shield, which they are hiding their coins. Now each player is going to get one of each coin automatically behind their shield at the beginning of the game, but then after they see the setup, they also get to secretly grab a coin from the bag and put it behind their shield. So everyone has one thing that nobody really knows what it is, and again, the beginning, the setup and that randomized setup is going to help drive what that early strategy might be. Now turns are pretty simple. On your turn, you're going to take 2 actions. And now here are the different things you can possibly do using those 2 actions. One of them is move coins. So if you want to, you can move coins, some or all, because sometimes, as we'll see later, there'll be more than one coin on a specific territory, but you can move it to an adjacent one. So maybe my first turn, I move this to here. And right now, there are 2 coins of that faction here. Another thing I can do is declare a contention. I'll place this marker on here. Now, if you happen to do this on your first turn, it ends your turn, so you kind of want to do that second. And what this is doing is this is going to be, this land or territory is contended for, and one of the factions is going to come out the winner. Right now, this faction has 2, because there's 2 coins there of that faction, and there's no coins of any other faction. Now I did that because I have a couple of those coins behind my shield. I know that everybody else has 1 because everyone's given 1 of everything, but I secretly took this one behind my shield, so I know I have more. You're going to be using these to possibly bid to add to the coins that are in that faction. Now what's going to happen is all the players are going to take any amount of coins from behind their shield, put it in their hand, and hold it like this secretly, and then everyone is going to reveal. So let's say I had revealed another one of these. The player to my left revealed 2 of these. They probably took one for their secret one. My partner on the other side did not reveal anything, and this player's partner over here did not reveal anything. So now we look at the total. We have 3 from this faction and 2 from this faction. So this is the faction that would win this one. And so this would get flipped over to the black and white side, and one of the coins of the winning faction would be placed here. All the rest of them are going to be surplus. Now, if it happened to have been a tie, the player that initiated the contention would get to decide who won. Now, the player that wagered the most of the faction that won that territory is considered the leader. Now, what that leader will do is they'll take at least one of those coins from the surplus, and they're going to put it at the end of the line. Now, this line is a line of coins that you can use to reinforce and to place onto other territories that I'll show you in just a moment. But they're basically saying, I want these coins to be available a little bit later in the game for reinforcement, also for players to be able to sort of take some of these coins. Now, they had to place at least one in that line, but they could place as many as they want. The rest of them are going to go into a discard pile. Now, the discard pile started with one of each seeded. But again, there are some certain things that you can do. I'll show you in just a little bit about what you can do with these coins that are in the discard pile. Then that leader can either just take the first coin, put it behind their shield from the first coin in the line, which is the one furthest away from this banner. Then they can make a special build. Now in this case, so we have bridges, villages, cities, and a capital. And there's a certain amount of these depending on the amount of players here. In this case, there's 4 players, so we have 5 bridges, 4 villages, there's 2 cities, and 1 capital. Now at the beginning of the game, you're only placing a bridge or a village, for example. Now again, that leader can decide. So let's say they decide to place a village here. Now this is really important. So let's talk about why we're doing this and how we're thinking about scoring for the end game. Now remember, there are 3 different factions denoted by the 3 different coins. At the end of the game, there's only going to be one winner of the 3 factions. And the winners are going to be calculated by looking at the territories, and by default, this faction would have 1 point for this territory. However, if it's got a village on there, it's going to be an additional point. So this one would be worth 2 points to that faction. Now, when you build, you don't have to do the special build in the territory that was the contention territory. Let's say this one was in contention, this one got flipped, and this was the faction winner. The leader can, if they want to, do the special build in that or in an adjacent one, whether or not it's flipped to the black and white side or not. So if I had won this one and I was the leader, I could place, instead of a village, I could upgrade it to a city. And what does that do? Well, instead of it being worth a total of 2 points now it's worth a total of 3 points. Let's say in a future round, I was able to get this one to win. Let's say this is the faction that won. I'm the leader. Again, I could build in this one, or this one, and I'm gonna upgrade from a city to a capital. And so now the total points of this one is going to be 4. Now there's only 1 capital, but by upgrading from the village and from the city, it's putting those back in the supply, but there's always only 1 capital ever able to be placed out. So the different buildings will become more and more scarce as they're put on the board, but as they're upgraded, the ones below them will come back to be able to be placed. Now let's say in the future, this one goes. Now any one of these could be the one in contention. It could be way out here. It doesn't have to be adjacent to any of these ones. But let's say this one went through contention. Let's say it got flipped. Let's say this faction was the winner. And let's say they decide to place a bridge. Now, here's the other thing is when you're building, again, you don't have to build here. You could build on an adjacent one or upgrade an adjacent one. But here, they're going to pick an adjacent one to have a bridge. And this bridge is going to go to here. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's say this one ends up resolving, and the leader, this ends up being the faction of the winning this one. At the end of the game, now remember, each one that has just a coin is 1 point. With a village, it's 2. With a city, it's 3. With a capital, it's 4. But if it has a bridge that goes to an adjacent territory, and both of them have the same faction, then each of them get an additional point. So this one's no longer worth 1, it's worth 2. This one is no longer worth 4 because of the capital, it's worth 5, which is huge. Now let's fast forward a bit towards the end of the game just to show you, well, why are we trying to get things to flip over and be certain factions, and why are we trying to build here? Why are we trying to give them the most influence? So let's show you why. Now the game is going to end as soon as there's 1 territory that's not yet flipped, so the game would be over now. Now let's look at the total, the 3 different factions. Let's look at the total amount of influence here. This one just has 1 because it's a coin, it's 1, that's it. This is not completed, so this one just has 1. Okay, the one that we were showing you the most on, this one's worth 5, again, because it has this is 4, and the bridge going to one that already has one is another one, so this one had 5. Now this one has 2 because it has the village, so now we're at 7, and this one would normally be 2 because it has the village, but it also has the bridge going to another one of the same faction, so this is 3. So this faction has a total of 10. Now let's look at this one. This territory has 3 because it has a city. This one would normally have 1, but has a bridge going to another territory that has the same faction, so that's 1 more. So this one is 2. So 3 plus 2, that's going to be 5. This one is normally 2 because it has a village, but it has a bridge going here, so that's 3. So we were at 5, now we're at 8. This one would normally be 3, but it has 2 bridges going away to the same faction. So it's 2 more. This one's worth 5. So this faction actually has a total of 13. So 13 of this to 10 to this to 1 to this. So this faction actually has the most influence. Now in reality, there actually couldn't have been this many pieces built with only this many territories being finished contention in the game, but I wanted to show you the different ways that things score and link together. Then each team is going to tally up the amount of coins they have behind their shields. I was going heavy for this faction, so I have been putting a lot of these coins here. And this is part of the twist of the game, is that you're using these resources a lot to build up the influence and build up the buildings for completed territories that have these coins on there. So you're using those as resources to get those things to score a certain amount. But in the end, whoever has the most coins of those behind the shield is going to win the game. So you could be basically putting all these coins out there, doing all the dirty work, and your opponent could be seeing what you're doing, not bidding, letting you do all the work, and holding all the coins of the one they think is going to win in the end. So it's a very tricky balance there. So essentially you're going to add up the coins between you and your partner, and whoever has the most coins of the winning faction, that team is going to win, which in this case was this one. And unless my teammate had a ton of these, we're probably not going to win. So let's dive back in and talk about those actions you can do in the turn. Now we did a special build. Now, if you remember, we took the first coin from the end, from this end over here, and then we did a special build. But instead of doing that, you could take the first 2 coins and put them behind your shield instead of building. And another action you can do is just take that first coin from the line, assuming that you don't have more than 5 coins behind your shield. Now remember, you're taking 2 actions and it's going clockwise, and from those 2 actions, you can move coins, which is moving one from a colored region to another colored region. You can move all or some. So if this was like this, I could move all of them, or maybe just some of them here like that. Another action I haven't talked about yet is reinforcing, and this is where this discard pile is important. You can take one from the discard pile, and you can place it on a territory like this, assuming there's already at least a coin of that type there. So instead, I could have taken this one and placed it over here, and now this one is sort of winning 2 to 1 for this faction. And that's why being the leader is very important. Remember, you become the leader by being the one that bid the most of the winning faction, because again, you're getting to decide which coins are going to the end of the line, possibly being available later in the game, or which ones are being in the discard that people can use to reinforce. So do you think you're behind and you want to have these available to place out, or do you want to stick them at the end of the line, keeping them sort of away from opponent for a while? That's pretty much the game. Remember that you're going to go until there's just one territory that has not had contention. You're going to add up the influence of all 3 factions, and for that winning faction, whatever team has the most coins behind their shield for that faction is the winner. Now in a 3-player game, after setup, one player is randomly selected as the politician. They will get this token. They'll also get 1 coin of each faction. They are secretly going to select one of these as sort of their secret agenda. If they pick one of these, let's say they select this one, they take it out of the game, and this is secret, and if this faction is the one that has the most influence, the politician wins, even if it's tied with another faction, and even if a player has more coins of that color than them. So this is sort of a secret agenda that allows them to win. If they select this as their secret agenda, then the end game works as normal. Well, there you have dominance, and as I showed in the overview, you'll be using intrigue, deception, blackmail, and brute force, spawn conspirators at every turn and trying to become the ally of the winning faction. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link that's right below me, right in the description of this video. Now that's going to take you directly to the crowdfunding project page, and I'm sure that GeoKicks would love your support.